Well, again, good morning. My name's Lauren Cotant. I see some familiar faces in the room, and I see some that I haven't had a chance to work directly with. And so I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself and share my connection to this great student program, Into the Streets. And so I work in the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership and serve as the Assistant Director for Leadership and Service. And so that provides me with an opportunity to advise several student organizations. I've in fact worked with some of you as it relates to other orgs, but one of those is the Leadership and Service Council. The Leadership and Service Council is a group of 8 students who's predominantly responsible for the large-scale student-led service events on our campus, those one day of service opportunities, well, one of those being Into the Streets. And so this year, Into the Streets is happening in somewhat of a traditional format, which I'll get into later, but uniquely, we were required to seek faculty and staff support this year to ensure that we're promoting health promoting behaviors while we're on the service site and to ensure our community safety. This has been something that has been a goal of the Leadership and Service Councils for quite some time because we wanted to integrate student volunteers with faculty and staff. However, a silver lining to COVID has been that we've been finally forced to do that this year. And so thank you for volunteering your time, not just to go serve the community, but to support our students and to ensure that we're able to host this event. So I am so grateful. This morning, we're going to go through a few different topics here that I feel like will make you fully prepared for your experience on Friday. And so first, I wanted to introduce Into the Streets to you in case you're not familiar with the program. Then we'll talk about the need for faculty, staff, site leaders. I've shared a little bit that COVID's required that, but there's some other reasons we think that this will be a beneficial component to the Into the Streets program. We'll then go through the day of overview so you know exactly what to expect. And we'll finish out this morning with some discussion on risk mitigation as well as your site-specific information and what to expect there. As we go through the slides, we're a very small group. You're welcome to stop me or use the chat to stop me to ask your question, or we can ask questions at the end. So no, either format works just fine. And so about Into the Streets. Into the Streets is actually 21 years old at UAB. We're really excited to host the 21st year of that this fall. This program was created by the Leadership and Service Council 21 years ago. It was a student-led program and has remained a student-led program in its time on our campus. We are excited that we have the chance to continue this despite COVID. We were at first very concerned that this was going to have to be only virtual service, and we are limited currently in our community as to what virtual opportunities can happen on a one-time basis. And Into the Streets really focuses on that initial exposure to the community. This is a great event for first-year students or for students that are looking to engage in the community, learn more about Birmingham, but potentially not engage in a long-term commitment. This is something that we like to do to get our students' feet in the door, so to speak, to recognize their role in the community and start to connect to their responsibility to go out and to serve, that their community is greater than just our UAB campus in Birmingham. Into the Streets, as I mentioned, is sponsored by the Leadership and Service Council with direct oversight from student involvement and leadership. And so we have the privilege of guiding these students as they prepare for the logistics, reserve the sites, sign up the volunteers through Blazer Pulse. And Blazer Pulse is the other partner that really makes Into the Streets a smooth process. As you all have already seen, you've already been registered, and it allows us to communicate with our volunteers. And so we are definitely looking forward to the 21st year of Into the Streets. Traditionally, it would have started on our campus with a kickoff event. This year, however, we're going to go directly to our service sites. Additionally, it would have typically happened on a Saturday. This year, however, we're restricted due to the student organization social event guidelines as to when we can host events. And so we're hosting it on Friday for the very first time. And so those two pieces of information are important because I'm not sure yet how they're going to impact this experience, but we certainly hope that our volunteers will still have a successful and enjoyable experience in the community, and we'll be able to make our traditional impact through service. And so I wanted to share some numbers this year. And so typically we would have around 500 volunteers come out for an Into the Street service event, which happens biannually. This fall, we're a little bit smaller scale, but I am perfectly comfortable with this because we're still able to host this in person. And so I wanted to give you an overview of what this year is going to look like. And so currently we have 5 shifts of service. This is also the first time we've ever broken up Into the Street into shifts. And so I'm hoping that will actually maximize opportunity for our volunteers. Within those 5 shifts, that's composed of 14 different service sites. However, those 14 sites, some of them are happening back to back. And so it's really 8 community agencies or community partners that we're going to be out in the community serving on Friday. In total, we have enough spots, I guess, so to speak, registration opportunities for 133 volunteers. And I use the word volunteers opposed to students because I do want to make sure you all understand that faculty and staff can sign up to participate in Into the Streets. We, in fact, encourage that because of the interaction it provides for our students and exposure to service for them as members of the UAB community as well. Because it's through Blazer Pulse, oftentimes we are unaware if it's a student or faculty or staff member. So you may have some faculty staff members arrive to your service site. Right now, I checked this morning before our meeting, we have around 70 confirmed volunteers. And so we still have a good ways to go before Friday to maximize the number of volunteers available. This is pretty typical. Students wait until the last minute. And so any help you could provide with connections you have on campus to encourage volunteers to register, we certainly appreciate it. And so what is the faculty staff site leader role? I've really broken it down into 4 categories. The first, and perhaps the most important right now in the circumstances we find ourselves in with COVID-19, is health promotion. And so as I mentioned, we're required to have faculty staff presence to ensure that there is a responsible UAB community member at the service site to ensure our volunteers' safety, but also our community safety. This means that the faculty staff member has to be the voice of reason. And so if we see a student that has pulled their mask down in a way that's inappropriate to really protect those around them, we're really relying on you to encourage them, hey, you need to pull that mask back up, or unfortunately we'll have to ask you to leave. I will say, because I know that that might sound a little bit intimidating if you're not used to working with students in that manner. I know some of us in the room advise organizations and deal with them regularly. If you don't have as much interaction with a student, I will share that I have been attending another student organization's in-person service events this fall. Their group is Serve 205, and I've not once had to get onto a student. I'm very proud that they've recognized that they have to maintain those health promoting behaviors, but it is our role to ensure that that happens. One component of that is making sure also that every student or volunteer that shows up shows their health pass before we get started. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The second component is risk mitigation. And so there's really 4 areas of risk I've identified that you all are going to help us mitigate. And I'll get into more detail a little later on where I identify those 4 areas. Essentially, you all are a first contact emergency response, and then I'm your second line of defense. And so it's really having someone who is a professional on the spot that knows who to call or what to do in this situation, regardless of what it is that arises. And so again, we'll talk through those 4 different types. In the past, and I don't want to jinx us, but in the past we haven't had to have too much emergency response. And so I hope that we will have a smooth experience this fall as well. The third option the third reason that we really need faculty staff support is because it enhances the interaction that we're able to provide with our students. And so something that is important to us through the Into the Streets experience is not that just a student is showing up to volunteer because their friend said, hey, come on, let's volunteer and getting 2 hours of service. That's not the meaning of this experience. What we hope is to provide students with a connection to our campus, joint with a connection to their community. That connection piece to campus is so important because we know that when students feel connected, we're more likely to retain them. And we know that in order for an experience to be high impact, interaction with faculty and staff members as a part of that connection experience is an important component of the student experience. And so when you just send, 10 students out to a service site and it's just the students, sure, they're able to connect with their peers, but we want to integrate faculty staff into that process to ensure that this is a high impact experience, or at least the beginning of a high impact experience for these student volunteers. And so you all giving your time, I really think that that impact is greater than we'll actually be able to see or to quantify. And so I'm so grateful because, again, it will enhance that student experience. And then last but certainly not least is we're trying to engage the whole community. And so as you know, one of the UAB mission pillars is community engagement. Into the Streets has traditionally brought out a lot of students each year, each semester that we host the event. We're proud of that, but I really want to see the whole UAB community engaged. Oh goodness, my dog, y'all. Life on Zoom.
He wants to be a part of the conversation.
He does, and he's going to yell again. I know it's the UPS truck. He hates me. I'm going to try, and y'all will probably hear him growling in the background, and I apologize. Anyways.
And mine will probably answer back to him. So
No doubt. That's happened a few times with me on Zoom calls. The whole community concept, though, it's part of our mission pillar. I think people should be engaged. I am so grateful for your commitment because it has been hard. I want to be honest, to get people to give their time for Into the Streets. And so thank you. And you're going to be examples for us in the future. And so this is really the why behind our site leader, faculty staff site leader experience. And so what you really need to know, the day of overview. And so this is a glimpse of day of, and we're going to break down each of these sections. Essentially, you'll arrive on site, you'll be checked in, you'll spend the majority of your time serving, and then at the end, we'll have an opportunity to help students learn through some reflective discussion. And then lastly, we want you to confirm your impact on Blazer Pulse. Again, this is an overview, and so now I'm going to go in to break down each component so you feel fully prepared. The first is arrival. And so you should have already received confirmation through Blazer Pulse for your service site. In that confirmation, there is a site address. Additionally, I'm going to be sending that out to you in an email just so that you have it in another location. When you arrive, we would ask that you try to get there a little bit early. You know, some of our students are early risers and they're going to get there before everyone and be lost if no one's there. So if you could arrive 10 to 15 minutes early, that would be helpful. When you arrive, there really should be 2 points of contact you're looking for. That'll first be your student site leader. So every site, just like you have a faculty staff site leader for every site, there's also a student that is the leader of that project. Most of those students, I apologize, most of those students, oh goodness. Most of those students are Leadership and Service Council students. Some of them are other student leaders on campus who have indicated an interest in service. Brief pause there. And so the second person that you're wanting to connect with is our community site leader. And so additionally, there's a primary point of contact for the day of service project that the community has sent out to host UAB. We will provide you with their name and their cell phone number. There have been times in the past where the directions to get to the site, for example, are a little bit unclear. If that were to happen, that's one benefit of you arriving early. You could call that community site leader to say, hey, I'm on my way. I'm at this intersection. I can't seem to find where we're going. We have tried to be very clear and provide maps through Blazer Pulse, and so that is provided, but know that it's an option to connect with them either beforehand or the day of service, but at a very minimum once you arrive. I have found that it's useful to say I work at UAB. They tend to look to you to offer support and guidance in a different way. Sometimes they may think that you're just another volunteer that's shown up. And so make sure you share with them, I'm the faculty staff member that's been assigned to this site. Once you've arrived, the second piece will be to check in. And so the student site leader is responsible for two components associated to check in. And they've already been trained, but they're responsible for first checking in every volunteer on the Blazer Pulse app. And so there is an app, it's actually Give Pulse, that is associated to Blazer Pulse that the students should already have downloaded and should already know how to operate. When you get there, they can test that app by checking you in. That's actually what will confirm your impact in Blazer Pulse as well. Once they do that, I'm having a feeling we're going to have to remind the students, hey, you also need to see my health check pass. So go ahead and show them your health check pass, and encourage them to proactively seek that out from the other volunteers as they arrive. And so they should check them in on Blazer Pulse and see their health check pass. I would encourage you, as they're doing this while the other volunteers arrive, for you to stay kind of close by. You don't have to look over their shoulder, but just to ensure again that we know everyone has a cleared health check. If a student shows up that has not registered, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to stay because of capacity concerns and us maintaining social distancing. And so the student should feel confident in saying, I'm sorry, this site is full. If not, I would ask that you step in to reinforce that. Once you've checked everyone in, or the student site leader has, then you are going to actively participate in service. And I say actively participate because we have had experiences in the past where we've asked for faculty staff support and you're unclear on what your role is once the service actually starts. Know that we've counted you in our volunteer count. So the community agency has counted you and prepared for you in that way. And so whatever that service description is that you should be able to read on Blazer Pulse, that's what actually you will be doing as well alongside the students. And so we'll be serving directly next to them. I want to encourage you, as a way to provide that enhanced interaction, to not just serve in silence, but to engage the student you're next to, of course 6 feet apart, but to ask them about their major, get to know them. That's part of this connecting experience. And so really use that opportunity to engage our students. It's also great for you to engage the community agency in front of the students. And so asking questions about your service site is a great way for you to learn, but also the students to learn more about that community agency and that specific need in Birmingham. And then next, once you finish service at the end of that 2 hours, we want to ensure that the student site leader hosts that reflective discussion. And so I will share 2 things that I think are important for you all to be aware of here. First is sometimes our community agencies are so grateful for the support and help that when that 2-hour period hits, they're just going to keep on serving until y'all say you're ready to go. It is okay and appropriate for you to be the ones, maybe connect with your student site leader and say, let's mention to the community site leader, we've got 10 minutes left before we'll have to dismiss everyone. So I really need y'all to help me with that time management piece, because we don't want to overcommit you and the time you volunteered or our volunteers. Once y'all do that, what I typically do on a service site is say, let's meet back in the parking lot for about 5 minutes before everyone's dismissed to have some discussion. I will be the first to say that can be very awkward depending on how it's presented. And so what I try to do, and what I'll encourage the students to do, and you as you help kind of guide and facilitate, is to just say, how'd it go today? We're so excited y'all came out. What did you learn new today? Or did you connect with someone new? Just casual conversation to help them start debriefing from that service experience. Our hope is that they're going to start to identify the root causes that have led them to community service. It's not your responsibility to get them there, but I do hope that you'll help us get them start to thinking about, why were we here today? It's more important than us just showing up to say we came and served and to log our impact on Blazer Pulse. What's the why? What'd you learn? And so again, the students know they're supposed to lead this, but I also am aware that they can get a little bit uncomfortable when it's outside their comfort zone, and leading reflection certainly is from time to time. So just ensure that that happens. And then last but not least, We want you to thank the agency before you leave. It is important to us that we have continued mutual beneficially partnerships with these groups that are hosting us. So on behalf of UAB, we'd ask that you thank them. You can depart from site and your contributions to Into the Street are finished at that point. You will receive an email just like every other volunteer that will ask you to confirm your Blazer Pulse impact. This will allow you the opportunity to reflect. Also, if you would like to, it's optional, as well as to edit your time. So if you arrived 15 minutes early, you could edit that to account for that time, for example. And so please confirm your impact. Also encourage your student volunteers to confirm the impact. Are there any questions up to this point about the day of overview? Great. And so the next piece I wanted to cover with you all is risk mitigation. And so I have shared that one of the primary purposes of our faculty, staff, site leader role is to provide the university with some risk mitigation on site in the moment. And I've broken that up into 4 areas. There's health, environment, conflict, and injuries. I've also provided on this slide my direct cell phone number. I'll provide this to you in email as well, but you're welcome to put this in your phone now if you don't have it, or take a picture of this slide. I am going to be available the entire time of service. Do not hesitate to text or call me if need arises. The first component of risk mitigation we've really already covered, and that is our students, volunteers, and communities' health. And so this piece is really ensuring that health promoting behaviors are happening. Each community agency has signed a memorandum of understanding stating that they are also aware of their responsibility to ensure these same health promoting behaviors. And so they should only provide opportunities that allow for social distancing, that require students to wear masks. However, if we see that not happening, I really am relying on you all to step in to ensure that we can meet that expectation. The second piece is the environment. And so we never know what Into the Streets the day of is going to look like until it's almost here. I will say yesterday I checked and there's a 30% chance of rain on Friday, just our luck. We will make the decision to cancel service prior to the start time if there is inclement weather that prevents us from serving. Some of the sites are indoors, and so that won't be an issue. Many of them are outdoors due to social distancing needs. If that happens, you will receive a cancellation email from Blazer Pulse, just like the other volunteers. I'll also follow up with you in a separate email to ensure you're aware that the event's been canceled. However, when you get to the site, the environment is really something that we're asking you to help us be aware of. And so if bad weather starts to form and you think the students or volunteers are at risk, I am letting you make the decision in the moment with the community partner as to whether to cancel the service site in the moment. If that happens, I would ask that you connect with me and let me know. It can be simple as sending me a text just so that I know, hey, we finished service an hour early because it began to be bad weather. That is something, again, if you make that decision to communicate with the site as well as your student site leader. Also, other things that are maybe unexpected. So for example, some of your sites are cleanup sites. We have asked community partners to provide garbage grabbers to ensure that students aren't touching anything. Or we have also asked our site partners about accommodation issues. So for example, there is a creek that we're cleaning up and there's going to be unpaved, uneven ground. We've tried to indicate that on the description. If you recognize there's something that would be putting our students at risk of danger within that environment, know that it is your call and you have full authority to say, I'm not comfortable with us performing this action. Again, we've tried to make sure we know what's happening before we send our students there, but once in a while, a partner is known to go rogue. And so know that you have full authority to make those decisions in the moment. The third component is conflict, and we certainly hope that this will not be an issue. I have not had this happen in my 3 years at UAB yet, but there's always a first for everything. So I want you all to be aware that this could happen. If 2 students show up to a service site and have a disagreement, or someone's having a bad day and that results in some consequences for the entire group, know that you're really our first line of defense there. We want to first resolve the situation as quickly as possible in the immediate setting. And so separating the students. then I think you could call me immediately, send the students back to campus if you need to. They're all driving themselves. If they carpooled there, if we need to come get someone, we will, but ultimately we want to separate those students. If something like this happens, of course, the students are required to follow the conduct code. And so if there is a situation, please make me aware of it, whether it's going to be a referral to conduct or whether it's something that I just need to follow up with the students on, because we oftentimes see conflict or anger or disagreement to root in something much more deep than the moment and the situation is what happened. We do want to be able to connect with them. And so again, I hope this won't happen. It hasn't happened before, but I want you to be prepared in the event that it does. And then last, and we certainly hope this doesn't happen, is injury. And so I'm going to use that creek cleanup as an example again. Let's say a student is on uneven, unpaved ground and they roll their ankle and get injured. You know, you will be the first person as a UAB representative to respond to that. If it is a dire situation with any of these, your first response should always be call 911. Our students and volunteers' health is the priority. So never hesitate to call 911 if the situation calls for that. If it's something where the student can drive themselves to the hospital, please call and let me know, because we're going to want to follow up on that to ensure the student has the support and help that they need to get through the situation. And so you're just there again to be the first response. You're sort of the liaison to UAB in that moment and to provide that immediate support, and then always loop me in. So if any of these four things happen, you should address it the best you know how in the moment. And if you need support, call me and I'll be there prepared, ready to talk you through anything over the phone. Are there any questions about this risk mitigation component?
Lauren, I had one question. Are you gonna, is anyone gonna have like vests for, like, if I'm doing the street, are they gonna have any kind of vests we can wear, or maybe recommend people wear brightly colored, clothing?
That's a great question. And so it depends on the site. For example, there's one site that's providing backpacks, so the little drawstring backpacks with all the supplies in it that all volunteers should be wearing, and that kind of should help them stand out from my understanding and conversations with the site. We do have some vests that we typically ask our site leaders to wear. This year we're trying to avoid shared contact, and so different people putting those on and off. But that's a great question, Michelle. I'll need to follow up on the specific sites where they're out at the road. I think there's only one where they're going to be actually on the roadside. The others are at creeks. So let me follow up on that. And if that's your site, I will share an update. Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right. And so site specifics. And so again, each of you should have already received confirmation from Blazer Pulse. If you didn't open that, I want to encourage you to go look at that confirmation. Within it, you'll find the description for your site that should give you a better idea of what you're doing. If there's any specific attire you're supposed to wear, such as closed-toe shoes, for example, that information will be there. That's also where you will have your site address. One of the benefits of us registering you through Blazer Pulse is it's going to allow you to add that to your Outlook calendar. And so it's just an easy way to have all that information in one place. It's also going to send you a reminder about 24 hours beforehand. And so you should have everything that you need there. That's the same information we're communicating to our students. In addition to this, I am going to email you all. I was waiting until after our meeting this morning. And in that email, it's going to include kind of the basics, the site contact, that primary contact, their cell phone number, your physical address, your student site leader and their cell phone number, as well as my emergency response information. And so know that you'll have all that information. You're welcome to connect with them as you see fit. So if you want to connect with them beforehand, that's fine. That's up to you. If you want to wait and connect the morning of, that's the only expectation that we have, is once you arrive that you connect with them. Do know that we have asked our student site leaders to email you, as just we're trying to teach them professionalism through this experience. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, they will email you you in the next few days to welcome you to their site and to introduce themselves to you. And so that might be some additional information you get. But you will receive that email from me following this meeting, so at some point today. Are there any questions about your site? If you've looked through those Blazer Pulse confirmations, if you have anything, now is an appropriate time to ask, or if I can get you any more information, I'll be happy to do so. All right, great. And then last but not least, I hope that you enjoy this experience. You know, I'm taking it that by you volunteering, you have a servant's heart, and that is something that I'm so grateful for, and I know our students will benefit from. And so I hope that you will enjoy your Into the Streets experience and that you'll want to come back and serve with us again in the future. Into the Streets is hosted biannually, and so we typically host this event again at the end of March. And so if you have a good experience, we want you to come back. And if you don't have a good experience or it's not what you expected, you know, I welcome that feedback. Student involvement and leadership really drives forward based on feedback we receive from students and partners. And so know that I am open to that, positive or negative, and I hope you'll feel comfortable sharing that with me after the fact. If you have any questions between now and Friday, I've provided my email address and cell phone number here. You're welcome to call or text me. And then lastly, while you're on site, we would encourage you to take pictures. If you take pictures, feel free to email those to me afterwards or text them to me in the moment. You can also tag Student Involvement and Leadership Instagram account if you decide to post them. We love to collect those pictures so that we can market the event in the future and to share our impact with the greater community. And so with that, that is all that I have for you all. Again, I wanted to open it up for any last questions you may have here at the end. All right. Well, if there are no questions, know that you're welcome to reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time, your commitment to this experience, and the impact that I know that you're going to provide to our students. We're so grateful, and I hope that you have a great time on Friday. So you'll have a great rest of your day.